Alright, so I'm trying something new this video where I record my audio into my phone, but I'm not confident that it's gonna work. So if it doesn't work, I'll just use my camera audio. Cool. I didn't need to tell you that. Alright, the idea of the male gaze versus the female gaze, as I have seen it on the internet, has typically rubbed me the wrong way. Or not typically, but has rubbed me the wrong way in a couple instances. I was in my media analysis class recently, and we were talking about the actual scholarly definition of the male gaze, and I realized, oh, it rubbed me the wrong way because it wasn't the actual definition. But today I wanted to talk about what the actual intended use of these terms are, and then how we see that kind of perverted or changed from how we see it now. But that is what we are going to get into today. So what is the actual definition of the male and female gaze, and how do we see it used? So the original term male gaze was developed and coined by the British film theorist Laura Mulvey in his 1975 essay titled Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. So the term has been around for a while. It's not new, despite its resurgence lately in the past couple years that we've seen. Originally, the term referred to, in cinema, the way that women are often sexualized or diminished or put down, and the way that men are propped up as leaders or drivers of the story in narratives. Specifically, again, in cinema. Pretty straightforward stuff. We see this a lot in movies from every time period, unfortunately. One of the most famous examples would be Transformers 1, that screenshot of Megan Fox sexily leaning in to the hood of a car to see what was wrong with it or whatever. She's dressed and directed to act in a way that's appealing to men and not necessarily in a way that a real person would act. Unfortunately, we are very familiar with this concept as it's so ever present in a lot of the media that we consume, and we're able to understand this concept pretty easily. However, on the flip, the female gaze is a term that gets a little bit more complicated. The term itself was not, at least according to what I could find, ever specifically coined or defined by a particular person or essay or publication or anything. I could be wrong. Please let me know if I am. So if there's no set specific definition, what is it? Simply put, it's generally used as the antithesis of the male gaze. So everything that the male gaze isn't, or just the exact opposite of the male gaze. But this gets confusing because this broad everything the male gaze isn't definition can get murky depending on who you ask. To some, it's the empowerment of women in stories as characters other than lovers or mothers or the general stereotypes that women are often put in to male-centered stories, and allowing them to be something different. To others, the definition strictly refers to women-made and women-centered stories, where protagonists are women, supporting characters are women, and it's very pro-women, which everything should be pro-women. To many, the term simply means to just have stories where women are not sexualized on the screen, and to let them be normal characters, though they still might not play super important or leading roles. In its most accepted definition, it means the view of a female audience member, or just the perception of events in the way that a woman might perceive them. I made an example for this. It's not very good, but I made an example. If there's a scene in a movie where a woman is in distress, the male gaze version of that scene would be on the action as the protagonist goes to save her from her peril, while the female gaze would focus on how the woman feels in distress and what she might be trying to do to get out of it before someone comes and saves her. Kind of a simplified example, but trying to kind of give you a picture of what this kind of means. The lack of a solid definition permits a lot of interpretation and leeway that can be good, as the terms and theories surrounding it branch off in different directions based on each person's personal understanding of the term. But it can also have some downsides as people spin the term into something that it isn't. Their audience, or whoever hears them, unable to find a single definitive definition, can be inclined to take that at face value. This can lead to some really unique examples of what the word female gaze means. So, what has it turned into? The internet, as it many times does, has taken a phrase, word, term, theory, what have you, and has turned it into something that it is not. This can be the case for language as a whole, of course. This is just, language is an ever-present, of course it's ever-present. Duh. Language is an ever-changing and evolving thing, but the connectivity and rapid nature of the internet has made it a lot faster for these processes to happen. Like how the word aesthetic didn't used to be used as an adjective, and now it is. That's not to say that a particular person who uses the term female gaze wrong online is at fault. I'm not trying to bash anybody in particular, of course, but the mass overuse of it in so many ways has led to the kind of alteration of the term, which is how you get things like this. Insert TikToks.
Why is everyone acting weird towards me?
No, we're not. You're chill. Come on.
No, seriously.
This is ridiculous.
So hey, what? There are some examples of women in here, but how did the conversation about improving the way that women are viewed in media turn into a conversation about men and which men we find attractive? What? Even while using a term specifically for designed for women and to talk about women, the conversation is still on men. It's absolutely insane. We can never escape, can we? So how is the female gaze used now? Let's put it into words. You can kind of see it in the TikToks I showed, which I had to find on the World Wide Web because I deleted TikTok. So you see phrases of the male gaze and female gaze shifting away from the world from which it was birthed, which is cinema. Or film. Cinema. Actually, it's called cinema. And instead using the same concepts to look at real world people, ? It's a little strange how the term shifted away from characters to real people. Instead of looking at how a character was dressed by a costume designer or how they were asked to deliver a line by a director, people are instead looking at how an individual chooses to dress or act, or even what they look like, what features they have, which they have no say in. So that's strange. And this kind of moral failing has been tacked on to people who aren't deemed female gaze enough. I don't know. I don't know. So, because it is now being perceived as desirable to be in the female gaze. So this kind of moral failing is being put on these people who, for reasons that they might not even be able to control, such as what they look like. you don't have soft features, that's not female gaze. You must hate women, don't you? That's a very, very stark oversimplification, but you can see how this kind of line of thinking ends up happening, and you kind of see these things on the internet, especially on TikTok. Even more importantly, I would argue, is the fact that we are talking about men. I understand how the line of thinking could follow that if the male gaze is about how men perceive women and how they find them attractive and appealing, how the female gaze should show how women view men and find them attractive and appealing. The female gaze, in its barest form, means viewing through a woman's perspective, with the focus and main ideas being how a woman would view female characters and stories through a woman's perspective. So no men, like, anywhere in there, actually, by the way. The main idea was that it was the opposite of the male gaze in how women were viewed, not who was being viewed, if that makes sense. It's kind of a lazy way to not worry about treating women as characters of agency by just taking them out of the picture. Additionally, we see it in some of these videos of people making personal choices in order to fit in with the female gaze. I'm using so many air quotes. Making personal choices in order to fit in with the female gaze, which isn't necessarily how that works. Now, what is wrong with these things? Well, we're just using words here. What's the big harm? Words carry meaning. It's turned into this weaponized term to talk about men and women and who's attractive and who isn't, who's a person to be respected, what women are catering too much to men, etc. I saw this TikTok, I'll try to find it. It was one of those slideshow ones where it was like male gaze, female gaze, and on the male gaze slide it was just a bunch of pictures of celebrity women who are attractive, and then the second slide was female gaze, and it was a bunch of celebrity women who are attractive, and it was like framed as like a competition between the two, and all the comments were like, a female gaze is so much better, female gaze is so much better. People, all those women in the male gaze, like, I prefer how the female gaze women do their makeup, it's so much more natural and real. And it's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. Like, these women, they didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. And you're just putting them in these boxes based on your arbitrary rules of how they style themselves or what roles they take in movies or what have you. And you're assigning this moral thing to them. You're I have to calm down. Oftentimes, people make real decisions about their appearance and their actions for very real reasons, and these are now being analyzed and criticized on whether they fit into this box or that box of male gaze or female gaze. It's just feeding into this kind of surveillance culture that we already live in, you know, kind of this idea of, well, now I've got to worry about if I'm fitting into the female gaze, you know what I mean? As a man, I'm not equating being respectful to women, treating them as people, having soft features, or any of the other female gaze requirements to being the female gaze. Because that's not what it is. You know, I'm not saying they're good or bad things. I mean, respecting women and treating them as people is a good thing. But having soft features or dressing a certain way, whatever. We shouldn't be giving these men trophies for having a small chin or whatever. I'm saying that is not being used for its original purpose of open discussion and critique, but for the convenience of justifying why or why not you find a celebrity attractive. Also, people are just wrong about who they deem the female gaze. They use this term in order to put certain men on pedestals. Like, do you guys remember that dude Kevin he would, like, make those videos where he was, like, lip syncing, and he'd be, like, all, like, shy and timid, and then halfway through he'd get really, like, serious, and then he'd get shy again while he was lip syncing, and a whole bunch of women were like, this is the female gaze. He nailed it. He knows what he's doing. He's got it. It's like, okay. It's not the female gaze. It's a guy filming himself in his bedroom in a way that he thinks will make him attractive to women. That's not how a woman would perceive a narrative at all. He ended up being, like, weird or something anyway, I thought. Do we still see the female gaze in its intended form? Yeah, I think we do. We still see it often being used for its intended purpose in media discussions. There are very real examples in media of the actual female gaze, and how it's being utilized or made apparent by filmmakers to show the story from how women might view it and from their experiences. The popularization of the term has drawn a lot of attention to the different ways that women are treated in different kinds of films. People started to realize the subtle and not so subtle ways in which women are framed in shots, or how they are dressed or presented, and how that has an effect on the way that real women are treated and sexualized. This is kind of anecdotal, but I know that personally, growing up, I would see a woman presented in a certain way through what I know now as the male gaze, but I would see it in the movies or shows that I'd watch, and my young adolescent brain was thinking, well, if that's the way they are in movies, that's the way they're supposed to be in real life. And I thought that was how I was supposed to act as I grew up. And having the language now to discuss how that can be harmful is definitely beneficial moving forward in movies and television. If we don't change the meaning of these words in order to have these discussions. I think that using terminology that was made for analyzing media, on using that terminology on real people on the internet and in internet spaces makes things get pretty muddy and confusing, because we're going outside of the lines of what the term was used for, and then definitions get all kind of screwed up. It also feels kind of gross to me, because it is, in a way, objectifying people, or not objectifying, it's treating them like characters, or treating them as not full people by condensing their personhood into who they are attractive to. Does that make sense? Men who are seen as being female gaze are often seen as better people or more trustworthy to women and more attractive. This can end up putting, like I said earlier, putting men on a pedestal while completely ignoring the intended subject of the term, which is women. Specifically, women in film. I think, final thoughts, I would just say, like, see, this is my problem. I never script, I script final thoughts, and it's never enough of what I want to say. And then I'm there, and I'm here at the final thoughts, and I'm at a loss for words. I'm never at a loss for words. In conclusion, or in total, I feel like the use of these terms is not an inherently bad thing, of course, because they are helpful terms. They are helpful in conversations of media analysis, which, is what they're made for. However, we don't see them being used in this way. Bastardization. That's the word I was looking for earlier. We see a bastardization of these words or terms in ways that are harmful to people, because you aren't talking about characters, you're talking about real world individuals. And it's just like weird. It's just weird. You're being weird. I just this video I think was kind of inspired, one, by my analysis class, and two, by that TikTok that I saw months and months ago about that goddamn slideshow. The male gaze and the female gaze. I cannot stop thinking about it for months. And I don't know why. I do know why. I think I just can't stop thinking about it because it's so insane. It's ridiculous. And it was posted under the guise of supporting women. Because these terms were made in a way that is inherently kind of progressive. I need to stop saying inherently. A lot of people who use these terms are also progressive and are seen as such. The posting of that video, it's like, well, yes, of course I support women, but only women that look like that are the female gaze, because the female gaze good, male gaze bad. Duh. So I say this woman is male gaze, this woman bad. It's a strange strand of logic, and I'm not going to try and rationalize it or agree with it, because it's just weird. This video is not timely, I don't think. I mean, I don't know. Are people still talking about male gaze and female gaze on TikTok? I don't know. Let me know. I haven't been on there in a little bit. Actually, the only time I've been on TikTok in the past, 2 or 3 months was on my laptop to find these videos. And I didn't like it. I forgot how annoying everything is. But yeah, so I'm a little bit slower on the uptake of these trends and things, or the lack of these trends. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you listening to me ramble, or just letting the video play and not listening to me. That also works. I don't mind. I mean, I'd like it if you listen, but it's not a requirement, I guess. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out my other videos, I guess. Some of them are good. You know what? No. They're all good. Okay. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Peace. Peace.